Woota! Woota! What's up, everyone? It's your boy, the Crackhead, wishing you all a wonderful Thursday. I just read this morning for Punch newspaper, even though now online, how two Americans in 1988 left the United States of America for Nigeria with a 10-day transit visa. As in transit, they mean just one cross through Nigeria, maybe to another country, or from another country to Nigeria. But their plan was to spend 10 days in Nigeria. Brothers and sisters, instead of 10 days, these two Americans, whether they're a couple, husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, since 1988 up to 2024, 36 years later, they fell in love with Nigeria. And where in Nigeria? In Calabar. In fact, I make una just listen to this thing by our own self.
Straight from the Punch, ICYMI, how we spent 36 years in Nigeria with 10 days visas, American tourists. Two American tourists, Lisa Gatsby and Peter Jenkins, have recounted what led them to spend over 36 years in Nigeria instead of the 10-day transit visas that were approved for them in 1988. The two tourists made the revelation in an interview with a content creator, David Nkwa, monitored by our correspondent on Wednesday. According to them, they never planned to stay in Nigeria beyond the approved days of visitation until they saw the need to save drill monkeys in the country because they were impressed by the dominance of interesting opportunities in areas of science and wildlife conservation, the roads, the hospitality of Nigerians, and the living condition that appeared better compared to America in those days. I'll tell you what I like about Nigerians. Okay, that's what makes Nigeria different from every other country in Africa. They will say, hey, Oyibo, come in now, sit down, make we talk, make I go buy you drink. That is the difference between Nigeria and the rest of Africa. There were a lot of interesting opportunities in areas of science and wildlife conservation that we became involved in, and we're still here 36 years later. We arrived with a 10-day transit visa, and we have been here for 36 years. We founded a non-profit organization called Pandas that ranches monkey drills in Bano and Calabar in Cross River State. I don't think that one species is more important than another, just like I don't think that human beings are more important than drills or elephants are more important than whales. I think we are all of equal value, and the drill is a scarce species. It's one of the rarest animals in Africa, and it's one of those animals you never thought of would even see when we were traveling across Africa. You know, I had my wildlife field guide, and you look at the pictures. Gatsby, one of the tourists, said. Speaking on why Calabar was the place of choice, Jenkins said they had done their research and that aside from Cameroon, Calabar was another place for monkey drills, stressing that no scientists or tourists had discovered that those animals were living there until 1987, when they consulted the local people in the community and got funding to make it habitable while conserving the rare species of monkeys and other animals, including giraffes. Jenkins added, I love Nigeria. This is a great place. Come and live in Calabar and be at rest. When we got here, the population of Nigeria in the early 90s and the late 80s was around 65 million. The amount of natural resources that were still intact was extraordinary, and the density of wildlife generally in the forest was better compared to today. In fact, it is appallingly low now, but in those days, this was a wonderful place to do research. Communities were very welcome in those days. Life was cheap. Here, diesel, which is what our Land Rover ran on, was 35 kobo. And with 29 kobo to the market, you would come back with 2 heavy bags with change in the pocket. We were comfortable and found Nigeria habitable. It was the best value country on this continent by far. The food was cheap. The road was perfect. There was no gallop deeper than a bottle cap. Meanwhile, Gapsty identified the lack of patriotism as the challenge facing many Nigerians while berating the growing negligence of the country's culture, heritage, identity, music, traditional herbs, and healing. Nigerians don't have pride in Nigeria's natural heritage. I think that's a big issue because that's what it takes to try to make a difference. People don't take pride in their cultural identity, language, traditional herbs, and healing. There was this huge wealth of knowledge when we came here on traditional healing and herbs from the forest. And that was another thing that put value on the natural resources here. But which of these old herbalists have an apprentice who is learning from them? And when these guys are gone, all that knowledge is going to be lost. You go to the market now, we see herbal teas and herbal cures imported from China. How do we know that those things work? What's wrong with our traditional ones here? She queried.
Shona, I don't hear am. This woman talk say, as a den, you fit carry 29 kobo, go market, come back with change. Carry 39 kobo, go buy everything you want buy, change still remain. But today, even with 100,000, you carry enter markets. In fact, you go look for another 100,000 to add, buy which you be want buy because you know complete. So you see, this now why in those days, Oyibo bin dey like come Nigeria to invest, to live in Nigeria, especially that Calabar where she talk. Come and live and be at rest. That was the slogan for Calabar. But today, how our country, when they came to Nigeria, she said the population was 65 million people in 1988. And today, 2024, we are 230 million people. Now, give it another 10 years, we go enter 500 million. But that will not be my wahala. My wahala be say, since our president don't decide to go back to old national anthem, don't decide to go back to the old system of, I don't know, as things they happen in those days of Lord Lugard. May we go back to the old time where they use Kobo. Because they like say Kobo they favor us. Kobo was favoring us. May we go back to using pounds. May we go back to using shillings. May we go back shillings or shillings. All join as long as they end with links. May we go back to using pence. Because it's as if when we're using those currencies, everything was working right. You can't change the national anthem and leave everything that went along with the national anthem and leave them behind. No, if you change the national anthem, I beg, change all those currencies. Maybe things will come better for us. Who knows? Can we go back to 1988? In fact, 1988 is too far. Can we go back to 1990? It's still too far. Can we go back to 2000? Yes, it's closer. Can we? So make una, those of una will be Gen Z, make una sabi say in those days, things were far better than today. Even though those days too, our fathers been they complain because their fathers been talk say in their own days things was better. So when I see every year, every generation, they like saying so things go the worse, they go worse, they go. Yet we voted for another part of change that we haven't still seen. Well, there is change. The only thing is that the change we expected is not the change we are currently facing.